I love my coffee. I'm sure there's a decent markup on this drink. I'm sure it's not that hard to make. So why can't we have a go? I feel like there's a bit of an arbitrary injustice in our society where we tend to try and railroad all young people through an academic route until they're 16, and it's legally enforced and it's culturally enforced. And actually the resources aren't there like they used to be either. So for an increasing number of young people, in my view, school is not working. I started Get Fed to try and prove a point, basically, that we can hit back against the drug dealers. We can sell caffeine, not cocaine. We can get young people interested in learning skills and learning about business and getting out in the community. Because even if you're just got somebody walking past you who's kind of doing their best to ignore you, if you say, "Good morning, can we get you a coffee?" that's a pitch.
Tim, hello and welcome to our podcast.
Hello, Pasha. Thank you. Lovely to be here.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. So, as we always start off by asking the very first question, what is it that you do?
I am a youth worker, and I'm also the founder of Get Fed, which is about a year and a half old, and it supports young people who are struggling with school, and they might be missing school. They could also be at risk of exploitation, and I teach those young people barista skills on our little coffee van, but I also try and teach them about business. So I get them thinking about what it would be like to be part of a small business, and they actually are part of a small business when they're working with Get Fed. And finally, we aim to get them a gig in the community where they practice their skills and they can earn 50% of the profits. So they get to see the sort of full circle from training to becoming interested in business and then actually having a work experience as well. And some of these young people are 13 and they go up to about 17, 18 years of age.
How did you come up with the idea?
Okay, so I was a youth justice officer for a long time, so like a probation officer, but for young people. And I noticed, I think, more and more young people, especially maybe the lads who were struggling with education around 13, 14 years of age. And they might be missing a lot of school, still desperate to prove themselves, but a lot of negative messaging around them. And the rise of street drugs availability and the gang activity, plus the close of youth clubs and diminishing public services, made me concerned that they were falling too easily into the hands of the drug dealers. And I was like, well, what could we do that would be different to show them actually it's not game over because you can't get 5 GCSEs or you're not likely to get it first time round. And I came across frothy coffee. As I love my coffee. I'm sure there's a decent markup on this drink. I'm sure it's not that hard to make. So why can't we have a go? So yeah, I started Get Fed to try and prove a point, basically, that we can hit back against the drug dealers. We can sell caffeine, not cocaine. We can get young people interested in learning skills and learning about business and getting out in the community in a positive, safe, legal way. So that's how Get Fed got started.
And why did you pick the teenagers, and specifically you mentioned that a specific group of teenagers. Why did you choose that group?
Well, it's the group that I know quite well. They're a little bit younger, this lot, than perhaps the average in the youth justice system, but I feel like we let them down. So, there's lots of injustice in the world, but I feel like there's a bit of an arbitrary injustice in our society where we tend to try and railroad all young people through an academic route until they're 16, and it's legally enforced and it's culturally enforced. And actually the resources aren't there like they used to be either. So for an increasing number of young people, in my view, school is not working. And it's very difficult, both for the school and obviously parents, but also for the young people. It's quite damaging, potentially, to expect them to stay in school when they're just not cut out for it and the school isn't resourced well enough. So, and practically, Pasha, if you're running a business, you have to look at your customers. And those young people they're statutory school age and they're children, and there's funding behind them. So I potentially can offer something that is funded and also hopefully cost effective for the state. If we can keep them out of the drug dealing arena, then there is tens of thousands of pounds to be saved on children by keeping them out of that route and out of criminal justice and courts and placements. So that was my thinking.
And you mentioned that you were or still are a justice worker. Is that correct?
Still?
Yeah, you're a justice worker?
A youth justice worker.
A youth justice
yeah,
worker.
so youth qualified as a youth worker, but ended up in criminal justice. I think probably because I tend to think like a criminal. I think I always have, not just because I'm a middle child, but my teenage years were very interesting. They weren't quite as stable as they could have been. And I've never lost that curiosity about why people might deviate, get into trouble, and not do what's expected of them. So yeah, I've pretty much always been in criminal justice and always been fascinated by that.
So what is it exactly that you do on this regard, on this sense? So
With Get Fed?
No, not with Get Fed, with the...
Previously in youth justice,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it would be a lot of going to court and finding out what young people had done to end up being at court. So probably they'd committed a lot of offences or one or two very serious offences to end up in court. And then the court would look to somebody like myself, a youth worker or maybe a probation officer or multidisciplinary professional, and they'd be like, what can you offer this young person? Now, obviously, there's a menu of options in the law, so you have to kind of go with that, but you also have to offer the court something that they will be satisfied will manage the risk and also help that child to avoid further offending. So that's essentially what you're trying to do. And when I was there, we didn't have a pool table across the whole county, and the youth clubs had all closed. So effectively, it was asking a young person to come into my office in office hours and talk to me about something that they wouldn't want to talk to me about, like basically their worst mistake or the thing that they're most worried about. And for a 14, 15-year-old boys, that's not a great offer. So I had this sinking feeling that actually it was a bit of a game we were playing and it was suiting the professionals more than the young people. So I was desperate to look at more creative solutions. What I was able to do in the summertime was to be able to raise a little bit of money and do something creative with the young people, and that worked really, really well. So that was kind of my little pilot for what we might do differently. But the funding was always very short term, so I wanted something like a community interest company that would generate revenue and income and be able to work throughout the year. So that's why I created Get Fed.
So the Get Fed, I know that you mentioned at the beginning what to do. Can you go a bit deeper as to how it is helping the teenagers that you're targeting at the moment?
I'll try. It's a hard thing to measure, but firstly, young people want to do it. So I've never met a 14, 15-year-old who isn't incentivised by earning a little bit of money. And of course, Get Fed has got that built into it. But I think they also understand that just getting some barista skills is not a bad thing to do, because there's coffee shops wherever you look, and you could maybe travel and you might find yourself in a coffee culture in a very cool part of the world, and you might want to stay for a little bit longer by getting yourself a little part-time job. And I think a lot of them are entrepreneurial. I think a lot of young people who aren't academic are naturally more creative, and they're also desperate to prove themselves because they've failed. In their eyes, they've already failed at the number one challenge of a child, is to get through school and be able to progress to whatever you're going to do next. And they've got this horrible thing hanging over their head that they kind of have been told or somehow believe that they've failed. So they're often desperate to prove themselves. So they've got that kind of energy, like, give me something that I can actually do. And I think that they often can just master the barista skills within a few hours. And then it's about the more nuanced and sophisticated skills about customer service and thinking through a business and analysing a business model, and then maybe looking at your community and who can I meet, who can I hook up with to kind of develop this opportunity. So there's nothing you can't learn through enterprise, is basically what I figured out. And so I'm super excited about it, because I'm like, everywhere I look, there's a new learning opportunity. And as long as which is great fun for me, obviously, but ideally I can do it with a young person or two with me so that we're learning about that together. Because if I can open a door as a kind of white, middle-aged professional guy, then I think my young people can open doors much better, because people are going to look at them and say, wow, that takes some guts to come and ask for something when you're 13, 14 and you're doing rubbish in school. You're not the prefect or anything. You're actually getting excluded all the time. And here you are chatting with an adult about business. I think it gets them a lot of credibility, and I don't think they realise that they've got that up their sleeve, basically. So,
how many children have you helped so far, and how do you see them transitioning from day one to where they are today? Yeah,
it so depends, Pasha, because I've got some young people that are quite young, that's still only like 12, 13, so they're enjoying maybe the process of learning coffee and serving their teachers at school and stuff, but they can't legally do anything for such a long time. And we've only been going for a year and a bit. So I've got one young person who's like my OG. He was brilliant on the project. Anything I asked him to do, he kind of stepped up to, and I saw him through multiple challenges, and he was always just very positive and great with Get Fed. And he's just left school, and it was lucky, but a friend of mine, a contact, phoned me, and I'd previously like kind of sorted a young person out into his workplace, which is like a kind of really cool like sculpture forge place where they create amazing art. And it's very local, and they have a hard time recruiting. So he phoned me up a few weeks ago and just said, have you got anyone? And I thought instantly, obviously, of my lad who's been brilliant on Get Fed, just left school. To be fair, he's probably spending a lot of time in his bed. And so, yeah, I was able to put them together, and now he's working, earning good money and learning new skills straight out of school. And that was an amazing feeling, to be able to use my kind of new business contacts to be able to match a young person who I've tested a few times and I can really recommend. It's not based on his CV, it's based on I've worked alongside him, and I'm able to place him somewhere, and now he's flying now. It's fantastic. And so, but it's not always that easy. That some of the young people are very neurodiverse. They come from maybe quite chaotic backgrounds. They might move around quite a lot. So every young person is a unique challenge to kind of figure out what motivates them, how to develop their interests, and how to kind of make sure they've got the wraparound care that they need to be able to progress.
It seems like a lot of work, a lot of rewarding work indeed. How do you manage all of that? Because it looks like it is just you, isn't it, at the core of everything. And then you have this great responsibility and doing this amazing work, which is making a difference. How do you do all that?
Yeah, well, I'm doing what I love doing, so I think sometimes it doesn't feel like work at all. And it's new, and it's exciting, and it's constantly changing. So there's a lot of novelty, which I think brings a lot of reward as well. Working with teenagers obviously is exciting because they're inherently unpredictable, right? And they change so quick. So yeah, it can be exhausting, but I feel like I've got some really good support, and the support is always opening up in front of me as well. People are very kind, so people hear about Get Fed, and I think a lot of people understand that this generation are struggling. I think they realise there's not enough out there for them, and a lot of the people I meet rather tell me that they wish there was something like this when they were younger. So they got that kind of empathy for it. Or maybe they're supporting a child who they can see really struggling with school, and they just think, probably they would like something like Get Fed right now. So those people I find are so generous and supportive. So I'm definitely not doing anything on my own. And I guess I'm kind of energised by the options, and we're looking to expand. So, I do need to I need to be able to employ people, right, to be able to scale it and move it into different areas to meet the need, because I know the need is out there. So it's a great challenge to have, a little bit scary, but it's a great challenge to have. I love it.
When you work with these children and teenagers, obviously you see their transition, don't you? What are the key challenges that they come up that they have, that then you and Get Fed can do something about it?
Yeah, I think that they struggle with a belief that there's something out there for them. So a lot of the time, their motivation is motivation is just hard for them, because they've got this like negative view of themselves from school, possibly also at home. They possibly don't get great attention at home. And a lot of the lads I work with, they tell me that they will basically be up all night gaming. So they're up all night playing these like kind of really intense games where they're chatting to their mates or randoms online, and they're shooting people, and they're not going to bed till like dawn basically. And then they're finding it hard to function the following day, right? So I'm using Get Fed just to do youth work stuff. So it's trying to kind of, lads would not appreciate this opportunity. Lads don't want to sit and talk face to face. Lads want to be doing something, playing football, gaming, creating something, fixing something, breaking something. And that's when they start talking, or maybe driving in a car. A lot of my best sessions when I was a youth worker have been driving in a car, because it's not face to face, it's shoulder to shoulder. And it's a safe space to then start talking about whatever the young person wants to talk about. But I use Get Fed again with the coffee and the processes to do this shoulder to shoulder opportunity just to chat about whatever's going on for that young person, try and figure out what are the priorities for them. So they possibly do need to think a little bit about their sleep cycle. They possibly do need to think about their diet a little bit, and they need to think about, maybe their fitness and their friends who they're hanging out with and the choices they're making, and get a bit real about some of the things that they're actually quite cross about, that's holding them back in life, because they're getting to that stage where they do need to start kind of being honest with themselves about what they need to deal with to kind of move forwards. So that's the youth work thing, is you're in conversation with people, but a bit less like this, a bit more hopefully while you're doing something, especially with the lads. You want to be doing something that they kind of perceive as positive, so that then hopefully the conversations flow, and then from that you can maybe signpost them a little bit, and also let on to other key people in their lives that, this is the thing that we talked about. This might be the thing that they might benefit from a bit of extra help with. Is that kind of good? It sort of answers your question a little bit.
It does. Thank you.
I hope so. It was a tough question. Tough question, by the way. Yeah, I'm always working on that, Pasha. I don't feel like I've ever got that perfectly right. It's one of those things that you sometimes I just scratch my head about, like, how do I help this young person? They've got so much going on. I don't want to bombard them with advice. I don't want to be on their tail because they've got enough people telling them off probably. So how, it's a real puzzle with some young people. You can see them struggling and you're like, how can I help? I don't know. Yeah, sometimes you just got to sit with that discomfort. Somebody who's actually in a really difficult situation, and you just have to sometimes just acknowledge that life's not easy for them at all.
True, and to know that there is somebody out there who understands that and is doing something about it is amazing.
Right.
And I'm sure they're going to appreciate it either now or at some point in their lives.
Yeah.
It's always good to know that there is somebody.
If I'm not giving them too hard a time, Pasha, it's like if I'm not too stressy with them about the fact that their coffee is not great or stuff like that. So it's fun. We have a bit of a laugh, right? Because it is, at the end of the day, the customers still want a decent cup of coffee, right?
Yes.
So we've got to be semi-pro about what we're doing. We get a lot of love. There's a lot of generosity. People can see that we're not the big players. We're not Costa. We're not Starbucks. But they still deserve the best possible service that we can give, right? So it's an interesting balance. It's really cool to be doing that kind of theatre with young people, where you've actually you have to perform. You've got customers who want a decent cup of coffee. They're paying customers, So we're in that kind of little bit of a spotlight for a minute, and it's great to give that. It's great to kind of get young people to that stage where they can really enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get that very often, or maybe they've never had that, where they're performing in a positive way and people are very appreciative. There's a lot of people, it's coffee culture. A lot of people love their coffee, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're agreed on that, yeah.
What are the other things that you think can be done? Because for years and years, you have been involved, again, with these children and with these teenagers, so you have a level of understanding of what needs to be done collectively in the community, individually. What are the things that can be done that can make life better for everybody, and for the children that you're working with, to know that they also have a place in the world, and their life is not finished. They can continue, and they can continue their path to be somebody really great and make a good difference in somebody else's life when they grow and make an impact. So what are the things that you think can be done or needs to be done?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I really love the challenge and the positivity in that question, because I think you don't always get a question like that infers that there are proper good solutions out there that we can, together we can work on, right? So I totally am optimistic about the fact that we could change the education system. It doesn't just require more funding. I think these young people are telling us that they're practical, maybe creative, and I think at 13, 14 years of age, we need to give them an opportunity to do pre-apprenticeship training. I think we need to acknowledge that the economy's changed and that society is changing very, very quickly for these young people. So I think we need to update our education system. And Get Fed, if it gets to a situation where we're big enough and we can collect enough data and get some analysis of what we do and the outcomes, then I think we're looking to push on policy and say, look, you know, we can change this. It doesn't have to be very expensive, but these young people who are not academic, they need to be given those kind of vocational routes. Let's pay them, because there's an academic snobbery that's been in this country for centuries. Here we are sat in Oxford, right, where there's the most amazing learning opportunities and a lot of deprivation and hardship and a lot of gang culture on the streets that you see, right? So let's give these young people the opportunity to do those practical and creative things and reward them financially before they get excluded from school. And I think I've completely lost my thread with that. I would have liked to have gone on and said something else, but I kind of lost it there. So you were saying about things that we can do, and I think the school system is one, like the education system is one. So I would like to go on and say about a next phase for Get Fed would be about using dragons who are successful business people in the community. They are often slightly older guys or people, professionals who've been very successful. Interestingly, many of them didn't enjoy school a lot at all, and they've gone on to anyway to be very successful people. They have been very kind to Get Fed as well. I would like to use their skills and their address books to mentor young people, especially the ones who are a bit more outgoing. So they could meet with these dragons over several sessions, and they could be supported to develop a pitch for Get Fed, and then introduced to a CEO of a local company or even a very big company, and they would then pitch their experience of Get Fed and what Get Fed offers, hoping to get some corporate sponsorship. So I'm already talking to some really amazing business people about this opportunity. They like it, and that's going to be our next phase, I think, to kind of grow, not just Get Fed, but grow the opportunities for the young people, and to incorporate medium and large businesses into what we do as well. And I think also, as we have been around for a while, some of our young people, they're maturing, right? So they've been with Get Fed for a few months or years, so they understand Get Fed very well. Some of them can now start mentoring younger people so that they're developing a whole different set of skills in terms of people skills and supporting and teaching and training. And then I think we want to spin them off into maybe youth work training, or maybe running their own businesses and introducing them to Prince's Trust and people who can mentor them and support them to run their own business idea, which doesn't obviously have to be coffee or hospitality. So that would be really cool too. I think, won't be happy until we've created, entrepreneurs coming through at quite a young age who are using their kind of foundation in Get Fed to kind of just, grow whatever they want to do, and believe that whatever they want to do, they can do with a little bit of help and support in the community.
This is actually a brilliant idea. If somebody is listening to this or watching this, what would you like to tell them?
Oh, well, I would love them to keep in touch. I mean, we do our best to stay on social media. So Facebook, Insta and LinkedIn, we're available. We're thinking about starting a YouTube channel just this summer with a group of 6 young people who are just going to be a pop-up enterprise this summer holidays. So yeah, we would absolutely love people to keep in touch and just follow what we're doing. And because we're always looking for events as well, especially at this time of year. If there's local events that young people can work with the coffee van, then this is a great opportunity to get them out of their houses and doing something positive in the community. So yeah, please, more the merrier, isn't it?
Of course, absolutely. Yeah. Do you think you're going to expand or have partners to, so you can all expand to other cities as well?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we're just about to buy a 4-wheel van, because we've had the super cute little 3-wheeler, which is adorable, and everyone loves her, of course, but I have to trailer her everywhere. I'm looking at a van that's going to be 3 seats across the front, so it's going to be very easy to drive somewhere, grab 2 of my young entrepreneurs, and then go and serve. We've got Oxford University opening their doors to us, which is just amazing. So I'm off to one of the colleges in a minute to go and have a look around and participate in one of their events. So I think once we develop that model with the 4-wheel van, and then it's just a case of franchising, I believe, or kind of scaling, isn't it? Which is what you always hear the big business people talking about, right? Any idea, can it be scaled? Well, yes, I think it can be scaled. So I need to kind of be recruiting youth workers who, they're going to have to be the kind of people who both, who think entrepreneurially, right? And are very creative. And I'm guessing they probably didn't love school, maybe, but maybe they love coffee. and the idea of being outdoors and working with young people. That's the biggest challenge, I think, for me, is like, how do we find the people who are going to, that's always the biggest thing, right? Finding the people who are going to bring the life to the thing that you want to see grow.
Absolutely.
You're right. But there's demand. I mean, Aylesbury, Milton Keynes, Oxford, into Warwickshire, wherever, and our big cities. There's so much demand for alternative provision, and there's a limited budget. There's not enough to go around. So, yeah, I know we can grow.
What are the key challenges that you face as an entrepreneur and somebody who's doing, this brilliant job?
Thank you. Well, we're a social enterprise, so we're always looking at 4 or 5 different income streams. So it's a lot. It's a lot to keep in a little head. So I'm loving it. I'm just learning so fast. I'm not an entrepreneur because, well, I spent so long in public sector, right? But I guess I was an entrepreneur because I was kind of like busting out of the seams because it was very rigorously, boundaried where I was. And I think I had that creative bit, was just like screaming, why don't we try something different? So, but it is very new to me. I come at it a bit later in life. But the buzz of learning all these different skills about having to market something and having to pick up skills and then transfer them to others, train others, and get out there and just experiment and play. I mean, it's play, isn't it? That's what I kind of want to do. I think I learned a long, long time ago, actually, that myself included, but the human beings, they kind of learn best when they're in play mode. They're just having fun and doing the stuff they love doing. And your brain somehow just kind of completely reinforces that kind of learning, and you just, like riding a bike, right? When you do something that's that natural, you just don't lose it. You never lose it. That's the challenge, is to just keep learning at this rate, keep enjoying it, because I don't want to do it if I'm not enjoying it. I'm not doing it for that. It's got to be fun, because it's got to be appealing to young people who need that in their life, right? And also, I need to be taking risks, because I'm working with young people who are they're driven by a bit of safe risk taking, and I honestly feel like as a society we've completely let them down. We've almost risk assessed them out of their inheritance by, wherever you look, closing down their options, and I think they've withdrawn, and now they're kind of, a lot of them are online, having their lives online, and that's not all bad. But it depends on how you use that time, right? And whether you're picking up skills, or whether you're passively absorbing other people's content all the time. I think there's a lot of difference in there that needs to be teased out with young people. They need those opportunities to kind of assess that and reflect on their choices there.
Absolutely. You have a tagline that I see quite often in your social media, and that's enterprise is an education. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, this is my experiment, is, can we just learn whatever we need to learn through enterprise? And yeah, we're not sitting down hitting the books and doing the arithmetic and the grammar and stuff like that, but everything else, Pasha, can be done through enterprise. And it's fundamentally people orientated. I mean, there is some skills and some machinery and some technical stuff, and I always try and build that in for the young people. So whenever we're getting the coffee machine going and we're thinking about the electrics and the plumbing and the pressure and the heat and the health and safety and stuff, I'm always trying to help them to understand the processes behind that. But mostly it's about getting excited about the opportunities, and the opportunities are in the people who are out there. So it's, who can we meet today? Where can we go today? Where can we stick our neck out? And who can we pitch to? Because even if you're just got somebody walking past you who's kind of doing their best to ignore you, if you say, "Good morning, can we get you a coffee?" That's a pitch. That could be your first pitch. It's not in front of a CEO or Peter Jones off the telly, with all these numbers and, PowerPoint slideshow or anything, but that is a pitch. If you say something instead of nothing to that person who's walking past you trying to ignore you, then that's a pitch. And yeah, I love the sales guys who taught me that rejection is great. You get a badge for every rejection, because a rejection for a salesperson is like, yes, I'm closer to my next sale. So we have to find a way to to help young people to understand that, that rejection's not the end of anything. It's just like you just practice, you just learn from that kind of stuff. You just pick yourself up and you go again. And when they get that, I think that's a great moment when they start to kind of see the positive cycle instead of having all those kind of inbuilt fears about awkwardness, about speaking to strangers and stuff like that, because they carry a lot of that stuff, and I'm really wanting to help them unburden themselves from that.
I'm going to take a few steps back and dive into your own childhood. What were you like as a child?
Yeah, probably pretty annoying. I was. What was I like as a child? I was bright, so I was and I was interested about stuff, very curious, always been a risk taker. So yeah, I think that the difficulty for me at school was I often wasn't challenged enough, so I'd be looking to kind of create something. So yeah, some of the teachers appreciated that and some of them didn't so much. So I was always attracted by the naughtier people. I was always interested in, what was going on outside of the curriculum. Probably my best years as a teenager were like kind of when I had more freedom. Like I loved being like 17, 18, 19. I loved going to parties. I loved, having a great time. And I kind of got it so that I wasn't very accountable to people. And I did love it. Looking back, there was some pretty hairy moments. So, but I never stopped feeling energized by that freedom that I had and that ability to go out and explore the world. So I feel very fortunate that I got through that, reasonably safely. And I was very privileged to always have a family that I could go back to where there was, somewhere to sleep and some food and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that was what I was like as a kid. And I also think it's important not to lose that. I'm still too often for my kids a big kid, so I still am often for their liking too willing just to play and be silly. I miss that opportunity to be play and be silly more of the day. So I'm always looking for a chance to do that kind of stuff, which is probably why I ended up being a youth worker.
I was going to ask you actually, what made you become a youth worker?
Well, I had a serious job once. So when I left university, I went to America because I'd fallen in love with an American girl. And I ended up at the British Embassy in Washington, D.C. So I was issuing passports and visas for Brits abroad. So when that relationship broke up, I came home a bit broken-hearted, and I was kind of early 20s. I was back at home with my folks and, obviously not feeling great about stuff. And the only thing that interested me was the teenagers down the road. They were actually at the local church. It was quite a happening church. It was quite fun. And I was just interested in them, basically. They just were fascinating to me. So I ended up being a youth worker and, through various iterations, ended up in youth justice, working with the kids who really struggled and ended up getting in a lot of trouble. I always loved working with that client group. If I could do anything to try and help them understand, why they got in trouble and routes, possible options to kind of avoid that in the future, then that felt like I was doing something that was worthwhile.
It's very fascinating.
It is fascinating, like sitting in court and hearing, unfortunately you're hearing about somebody's worst moments, but if you can also have a perspective on, why did that have to happen?
Exactly.
And could it have happened differently? Then you've always got hope, right? There's always hope. So, yeah, for me, it's never about punishment. It's always about rehabilitation, restoration, learning, and optimism for what can be. So, yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
And you certainly like what you're doing as well. It's interesting because the whole trend shows that you always cared about young people, and whatever you've been doing, even when you were younger up until now, has always been around that. And the fact that you're doing something about it and you're making a difference is so fascinating.
Okay.
So well done to you for doing all of that.
Thank you.
Because I'm sure it's not going to be an easy one, especially that you're probably one of the few people who are doing something like that, and the plan that you were discussing with us earlier is an incredible one, and you can see that it can happen. You just need people to come along, on the journey with you, and then do that, because it is a very rewarding one for everyone. You give opportunities to people, you give opportunities to younger people. They know that they can do more of what they think, in comparison to what they think they can. And it's very rewarding, because they're in a very sensitive age, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure.
And they're trying to find out who they are. And it's important to tell them that you can be much more than what you think you can be. And these are the paths that you can take to discover yourself and your potentials, and live your full potential and live your life, rather than going to the dark corners. So and you're doing that. So thank you very much, and well done to you.
Thank you. It's lovely. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I have 2 more questions for you. One is that as a person who is doing all that hard work, of course you have ups and downs, you have good days and bad days. When it comes to the bad days and the downs, what are the things that keep you back up and want to move on?
I am so lucky, Pasha, because I'm coming up to 25 years of being married to somebody who's absolutely amazing. So she also works with young people, and we have children together, and we have. I have a lot of stability, so like life can get pretty crazy for me, and I still have an amazing place to go home to, and people around me who know me very, very well, and will put up with me having a bad day. So you can't get luckier than that. But in general, I'm curious. I stay curious about stuff, and I like to move. So my favourite thing, probably, if I'm having a really hard day, is to not sit around. So I go to my little my little dojo, I call it, down my garden, which it's not a shed because it's open. It's kind of open, but it has got a tin roof, so it's amazing when the rain falls. It's got music down there if you want it, and it's got a punch bag, and it's got some hoops to hang from, and a sofa if you want to chill, and a nice view out. The sun, you can see the sun going down on a nice day. So for me, being outdoors, being able to move, being able to just have some time to myself is where basically I kind of process the stuff that is like everybody has it, don't they? Everybody has that stuff that they need to kind of just deal with, and it's not particularly pleasant perhaps, but you can't ignore it. That's what I found. If you ignore it, oh no, that's the worst. It will really kick your butt if you ignore it. So yeah, that's how I try and do that, and relax that way.
That's so nice, actually. It's very nice. It's good to have that safe space and know that you can re-energize and then go back to being yourself again. So that's actually very nice.
Yeah, it is very nice. I love it. I absolutely love it. I've only sort of discovered it kind of in the last few years that I need that. So it's been really useful. Like, talk about lifelong learning. I think and I can look back at sort of decades and periods of my life, and I can see actually I really did need that, and I didn't know it. I didn't know I needed that. So I feel very fortunate to have found that in the last sort of 5 years or so, that outside time and that movement and that peace is so important to my well-being and my ability to kind of plot a path. It's not, maybe once I thought it was kind of I just need somebody to tell me what to do, but no, I've realised I need to get away from distractions, and I just need to figure it out for myself.
And the final question: what would be your advice for someone who is listening to this or watching this?
I don't give advice, Pasha. It's horrible giving advice. I do give advice. It's terrible. It's a terrible habit. I mean, I have to say, if I can do it at 50-something years of age, like 54 years of age, I got Get Fed started from a place of like kind of no experience of enterprise, then I think that anyone can do it. I think what you said earlier about kind of it does, when you've listened to, asked me questions and listened, you can see some kind of alignment. So I think that really makes a difference. So do something that is authentically yourself, of course. Get loads of help. Just talk it through with people and learn from every conversation you have with anybody, random strangers and people who know you very well. Because yeah, it's all about just learning, isn't it? Having a go and learning, and you just have to get somewhere and not look back and think, oh, I could have got away with that if I just tried it. You know, you have to try it and then see whether you get away with it. It's right? It's not that hard. So sorry about the advice, but you did ask.
No, absolutely. It was a good one, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, Tim, thank you so much again for coming to our podcast and sharing your story and what you do. It's so fascinating and it's so amazing, and I wish you all the best because you're doing something incredibly important. And I hope to see a day when all your wishes come true in terms of you have partners, and now we can spread it all across the UK and even world, who knows? And people can benefit from it, and young people can see a better future.
Cool.
So,
well, I'm so grateful, Pasha. Thank you. It's been amazing. It's been really, really fun. It's been lovely talking. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
no, thank you. You're such a delight. Thank you so much.